Welcome back everybody, it's the Night Sky Prince again, and today we're going to be analyzing the trailer for one of the most unexpected video game announcements out of Square Enix in quite some time. At Gamescom 2017, Square Enix announced they'd be remaking, or perhaps a better word would be demaking, the entirety of Final Fantasy XV as a mobile game for iOS and Android. More shockingly, this is not just some trash spin-off Game of War clone that doesn't even accurately understand 15's story or lore. Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition aims to retell the entirety of Final Fantasy XV story from start to finish. They've gone as far as to call this the same experience in the palm of your hand in the latest Final Fantasy XV Universe trailer. To be honest, it was actually really refreshing to see a mobile game in the 15 universe where a noticeable effort was put in. And rather than being a crappy free-to-play cash grab, Pocket Edition will span 10 paid episodes, with the first episode being free. So it's good to know when paying for this game, we'll be paying for actual content instead of in-game items. Though it hasn't been confirmed how much the game will cost per episode. But before we dive into that trailer analysis, be sure to hit that subscribe button for all Final Fantasy coverage and even more to come. We start with a faithful recreation of the game's opening and are immediately shown some incredibly stylized art. Right away, the game's colorful graphic style sticks right out at me. We're shown chibi versions of the four boys. There's been a lot of mixed reactions online about the stylization of these characters, so everyone knows where I personally stand. While I don't think chibis very well suit 15's universe, a fantasy based on reality, it's hard to deny to me, honestly, that these are pretty adorable. I kind of like them in a really weird way. It's also worth keeping in mind that this game, more than anything, is about introducing Final Fantasy XV to a casual audience. This type of art style is prime for the type of people whose primary platform is mobile. However, I do see one thing that just bothers the crap out of me, and that is that their mouths don't move when they talk. This is an extremely odd artistic choice even for low poly chibi art. Even Final Fantasy IV on the DS at least had a mouth animation that played. It's not an experience ruiner for me, but I gotta admit it's kind of weird. Also, Gladio is shaped like a Dorito. While in the main game he has a balanced physique, it's quite obvious that Chibi Gladio has skipped more than just one leg day. Of all the chibis though, I have to say Prompto's probably looks the best, despite some minor clipping that happens on his jacket here. We are then shown what is arguably the widest hips on any chibi I've ever seen. We take the scene to Hammerhead. At this point, it's safe to say this Pocket Edition is incredibly faithful to the source material, even with Sydney giving a similar quest to the first one given to you in the main game. Movement is done via touch input. It looks like you simply click where you want to go and your character moves accordingly. There's no HP bars while on the field and outside of battle, but instead in the top left corner we have a quest notification. It seems to be fixed in the corner of the screen to remind us of our quest on the field, presumably by tapping the exclamation button. Then we have the battle system. While I thought a remake would have used an active time battle system, which would have been cooler and probably a lot easier to use on a mobile device, I gotta admit, the mobile adapted battle system looks pretty cool. Combat seems to work by simply pressing and holding an enemy, fairly similar to the concept of combat in the main game where you hold the attack button. In the left corners of the screen, we have character stats such as HP and MP for Noctis, and simply HP for the Chocobros. In the right corner, it's a bit more interesting as we have two buttons. Judging by the UI design, I think it's safe to say that the top right button is the main menu button. This is most likely where you'd access things such as gear, ascension grid, assuming the game will have a similar progression system, etc. Right below that, we can see an icon that clearly looks to be a potion icon. This will most likely be how you access your items such as potions and elixirs. What remains to be seen is if it'll be rebalanced for the Pocket Edition, or if it'll be easy to spam items as it is in the main game. Other details we can note is that all enemies have HP bars above their head. If we flash to the scene where we're fighting the Bloodhorn, we'll notice that somehow the HP bar is now a lot bigger. This is probably the type of HP bar that will be used for any mini-boss or boss. First of all, being able to break enemies and get damage while they're vulnerable is still a triggerable mechanic in Pocket Edition. There also seems to be a blue indicator around the Bloodhorn's legs. It looks similar to the movement cursor we saw before. However, it's positioned exactly around the Bloodhorn's back leg. Does this mean we'll be able to target body parts like in the main game? It remains to be seen. The next scene we have is Chocobo Riding. While Noctis seems to be moving forward, there is no cursor like we've seen before. The camera seems to have changed position behind Noctis. Hopefully this doesn't mean that Chocobos will be on rails for Pocket Edition. However, at the bottom center there's a button with a camera icon. Presumably this will change the camera's positioning. A camera positioned behind Noctis would be a much more aesthetically pleasing way to ride a Chocobo. There's also a button in the bottom right corner. Perhaps this button is used to dismount your Chocobo. However, it shows a Chocobo running on the icon, which seems to indicate to me that it's a dash button. In that case, how do you dismount your Chocobo? All in all, all, Chocobo Riding in Pocket Edition seems to be mechanically unclear at the moment. Next we see that Ignis's cooking returns in Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition, in a very well recreated camping scene with very similar looking user interface. It seems that you level up just as you would in the main game by camping and tallying your experience points. This seems to confirm that Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition will have a real-time day-night system. In the top right corner, you see your party's pool of AP as it increased in this trailer. What's interesting to note, however, is the gain ability button. I can't recall anything like this in the main game, and it remains to be seen what it's going to be used for. Comment below if you guys have a better idea. Going forward, we see another scene at night with Noctis being knocked over, and then we have a scene of Noctis fighting an Arachne. Sorry if I abused that word, by the way, not sure how to actually say it. And unlike in earlier portions of the trailer where we saw combat, we now see Noctis having 3 weapons choices, starting from the bottom, going to the top, two-handed greatsword, a one-handed sword, and a lance. Switching between these seems to be done by clicking the one that you want to use. The more interesting question I have from all the battle scenes thus far is, how do you defend? How is phasing performed in Pocket Edition? Is it even possible to do? Can Noctis warp strike? That magic meter has to be used for something. Also, anyone who's played Final Fantasy XIV is immediately going to recognize the red area of effect that appears on the floor when the Arcanine seemingly uses a thunder-based attack. We also notice that when Noctis's HP reaches 0, there isn't a remaining health gauge ticking down to indicate when the game over happens. Ignis comes and heals Noctis. It's entirely possible that in Pocket Edition, game over won't happen unless your entire party simultaneously reaches 0. We're then shown a scene of the boys fighting a Marlboro from Chapter 10 in the main game. This must mean that these episodes must be far ahead in development. In fact, this far ahead into the story being shown off in the first trailer makes you think that the other 10 episodes are essentially complete already. Since this is Chapter 10, we notice by this point Ignis is already blind. You can see that he sports sunglasses and a cane now. There are green bubbles coming off of the boys, which seems to indicate that they're poisoned. Noctis's magic meter is locked away, so status elements have carried over into Pocket Edition. There seems to be a red icon on the left corner of the screen with no clear indication what it symbolizes. Again, comment below if you figured this one out. We're then shown Noctis being chewed up by the Marlboro, so the battles might just be quite dynamic in terms of the set pieces we can expect to take place during them. We're then shown the crew driving out from Hammerhead, hitting the road with the fall 2017 release window. And that's it for this trailer. Outside of this trailer, we were able to get some more screenshots and a bit more short footage of the game. It's absolutely insane that Square Enix is going through the motions of redeveloping and retelling the entire story of Final Fantasy XV for mobile. With a market in Japan that is slowly moving away from consoles in favor of mobile phones, it's no wonder why Square Enix has done this not only for Final Fantasy XV, but also for Dragon Quest XI on 3DS and PS4. Despite it not being perfect with, the mouse not moving, I highly look forward to the release of Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition. This is the type of mobile game that Square Enix should be building, and is very interesting from their current slew of free-to-play games. As for me, I'll be covering Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition in great detail, both before and after release, so be sure to subscribe. I'm also doing a retrospective series on the development history of Final Fantasy VII. It's going into depth to analyze the entire production of Final Fantasy VII in a way in which no one's ever done before, so be sure to check out part 1 annotated on the screen.